scriptures. We'll keep our thoughts together when we are listening to the word of God, prepare our hearts, and then put our petitions and requests at his feet. So let's look to Lord for help. Okay. ప్రేమ కలిగిన పరలోకమున మా తండ్రి, పరిశుద్ధమైన దేవా, మీ ఘనమైన నామాన్ని బట్టి స్తుతులు స్తోత్రం చెల్లిస్తున్నాం నాయన తండ్రి. ఆదివారం నుండి ప్రభా ఈ క్షణం వరకు మమ్మల్ని సజీవ లెక్కలో ఉంచుతూ ప్రభా మా యొక్క పనులలో ప్రభా మా యొక్క దినచర్యలో నీవు తోడైంటూ వస్తున్న విధానం బట్టి ఎంతో వందనాలు ప్రభా. మరొకసారి సంఘంగా ప్రభా ఈ విధంగా కూడుకోవడానికి మాకు ఇచ్చినటువంటి సమయాన్ని బట్టి ఎంతో వందనాలు ప్రభా. కొంత సమయం ప్రభా వాక్యాన్ని ధ్యానించుకొని మమ్మల్ని మేము సిద్ధపరచుకొని ప్రభా నీ సన్నిధికి వచ్చి మా ప్రార్థన అంశాలను పెడుతుండగా ఆయన తను నీవు సహాయం తెచ్చి, ముఖ్యంగా నా యొక్క ఆలోచనలు, నా యొక్క తలంపులు, నా యొక్క మాటలు ప్రభా నీ స్వాధీనంలో ఉండటానికి సహాయం దయచేయము. ఆత్మ ద్వారా నన్ను నడిపించము. నా సొంత జ్ఞానము, సొంత ఆలోచనలు, సొంత తెలివితేటలు తీసివేయము ప్రభా. దేనికి కూడా ఆయన తండ్రి మరి ఆశీర్వాదకారణంగా ఉండదు కాబట్టి ప్రభా నీవే నన్ను గాడిలోంచి సహాయపడమని ప్రార్థిస్తున్నాం. వచ్చిన వారిని బట్టి మీకు స్తుతులు స్తోత్రం ప్రభా. మా హృదయాలను సిద్ధపరచుకోవడానికి కృపను చేయించము. మాకంటే అనేకులు గొప్ప వాళ్ళు, శ్రేష్ఠులు ఈ క్షణాన్ని చూడలేక గతించిపోయారని ఒప్పుకుంటూ మమ్మల్ని నీవు సజీవ లోకంలో ఉంచున్నావంటే ఒక ఏర్పాటు, కృపా కనికరం ఉన్నదని మేము అంగీకరిస్తూ ఈ సమయాన్ని మీ కృపలో మమ్మల్ని ఆశీర్వదించమని ప్రార్థిస్తాం. నాకు ప్రార్థన ప్రభు యేసుక్రీస్తు నామమున పేరిట అడిగి వేడుకుంటున్నాను మా తండ్రి. ఆమేన్. Yeah, let's all read Philippians chapter 4, very well-known portion. Philippians chapter 4, verses 4 to 7. If anyone can help, please unmute and then we'll read responsibly, one after the other. So Philippians chapter 4, from verses 4 to 7. I'll read verse 4. Rejoice in the Lord always. Again I will say rejoice.
Let your moderation be known unto all men. The Lord is at hand.
Verse 6. Be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God.
And the peace of God, which passeth
understanding, will guard your hearts and minds through Jesus Christ. Yeah, this is very well-known portion to all of us. Probably we might have heard some hundreds of messages, sermons on this particular passage. So Apostle Paul, right, like last week, as we have seen, for every church, whenever he writes a letter, he teaches them a spiritual truth, to Galatians, to Corinthians, to Colossians, to Philippians. Every letter, he has some spiritual truth. So even here also, if you see chapter 4, verse 6, which is maybe a central verse for us tonight, it says, be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. I think in my personal opinion, I want to say like this. This verse is very easy to say, very, very easy to say. And not only me, or maybe others also, because it's easy to say, right? It says, be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. So to better understand this, I'll give you one example. So in IT industry, I don't tell a lot of details, but I hope you'll get what I'm trying to say. So in IT industry, every day when we go to work, there is a meeting. So there will be a facilitator. It's called Scrum meeting. We don't have to go much details into it. So basically what happens when all employees in the IT industry come of a particular team, there will be one guy, one facilitator. And then he asks everybody, what are you doing? Like, what is your process? Are you tracking? This is our target date, right? And if someone says that, oh, okay, I need 2 more days or 3 more days, you know what he says? oh, it shouldn't take that much time. It should be actually done by now. And every day this is Scrum meeting. This is very common in IT industry. And on Friday there will be another meeting. The same facilitator will ask about the progress that we have made from Monday to Friday. That's again a bigger meeting. And then each team member will say, oh, this is what I did, and I am blocked here, I need some help. And then that facilitator will again say that, no, we shouldn't say like that. It should have been done by now. Or this is very easy task. Why you are taking so much time? You know what happens? Now it's not happening. But when we used to meet physically, after that Scrum meeting was done, some of our friends in any organization, I'm talking this, once that facilitator goes to his room, all of us will gather and say, ఆయన చేస్తే ఆయనకు అర్థమవుతుంది ఈ పని అంట. Because it's easy. Facilitator can say that, oh, how come Arun it is taking 2 weeks? Arun, how come it is taking 3 weeks? This should be done in 2 weeks, right? This should be done in maybe 1 week. It's very simple task. And as soon as he goes, we'll come to some coffee room and say, he doesn't know what he's talking about. This is very tough task. And so that's why it's some people in IT industry, they can't take it because it's so frustrating. And sometimes it's too much headache. We can't handle it. And the more pain we get when someone says that it can be handled very easily, that's even more harder to say. I think this is what happening here. I feel, because see, we don't know what Philippians church is going through, but Paul, he's saying that rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I will say rejoice. Let your gentleness be known to all men, because Lord is at hand. Be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplications with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. It's easy. బోధించడం చాలా చాలా ఈజీ. ఇలా చేయకండి, అలా చేయకండి, ఇదే తినండి, ఇది తినకండి, ఇలాగే ఉండండి, చెప్పడం చాలా ఈజీ, కానీ చేయడం చాలా కష్టం. సో when I was reading, I thought, how come Paul is saying like this to the church at Philippians? He is saying, be anxious for nothing, but in everything, we know that everything we need, but when you're going to God, go with thanksgiving. So let's say, right, I'm struggling for visa. In my own example, I'm saying, if I'm struggling for my visa for 7-8 years, I'll have pain. You can't see happiness, joy on my face. Maybe if I laugh, maybe 1 minute, 2 minutes, I'll laugh when I'm with people. But deep down, I'll have great pain. You can't understand. Nobody can understand, because I know what I'm going through. Same way, if you have your own personal problem, it's very tough. We cannot understand. I might see your outer appearance, but inside what you're going through, it's very tough. In that situation, if someone says that, oh, in everything, be joyful, give thanks to God, and everything will be all right. It's so tough. So when I was meditating, I gathered some details about Paul's own life, right? అందుగురించే కొన్ని సంఘాల్లో ఎందుకు శాంతి ఉండట్లేదంటే నా అభిప్రాయము, బికాజ్ అక్కడ నించోని బోధించే వాళ్ళు బాగా బోధిస్తారు, కానీ ఏం బోధిస్తున్నారో అది వాళ్ళ సొంత జీవితంలో వాళ్ళు జీవించారు. అదే ప్రాబ్లం. బట్ పాల్ ఈజ్ నాట్ లైక్ దట్. When Paul said, be anxious for nothing, but in everything give thanks, ante he gave. So we'll read a couple of verses. Actually tonight it's not the Paul's life we are seeing, but we'll see a couple of verses what Paul did, Paul went through, and then he still says that give thanks. We'll see that experience in Paul's life, and we'll actually go to other portion for our tonight's meditation. So quickly, Acts chapter 14 verse 19. If anyone opens, please read Acts chapter 14 verse 19. And also another verse, Acts chapter 16 verse 19, verse 14 and 19. Okay, I'm reading Acts chapter 14 verse 19. Then Jews from Antioch and Iconium came there, and having persuaded and multitudes, they stoned Paul and dragged him out of the city, supposing him to be dead. Paul was in this situation. He was dragged out of the city, supposing him to be dead. Dragged ante it's not some Audi car lo lift ఇచ్చినట్టు కాదు, ఏదో మంచి కార్లో ఓకే పాల్ నిన్ను అక్కడ డ్రాప్ చేస్తామని కాదు. In that city they dragged him, Paul. When church was still becoming matured after inception, after starting, Paul had to go through a lot of tough times. See here, Paul was dragged. This was in Acts, but in Philippians, with that experience, he still says, even though we are going through a lot of troubles and tough times, in everything give thanks. Remember this verse again in chapter 16 verse 19. Acts chapter 16 verse 19. But when her master saw that their hope of profit was gone, they seized Paul and Silas and dragged them into the marketplace to the authorities. Again, Paul was really dragged. నిజంగా ఈడ్చుకొని వెళ్ళబడ్డాడు. మనలో I don't think whoever are sitting here or present day generation Christian, at least in this part of the world, I don't think anybody is going through this tough time, being dragged out of the city. Chapter 14 లో అయితే చనిపోయాడు అనుకున్నారంట, అంతగా డ్రాగ్ చేశాడు. One more verse. Chapter 16, same Acts chapter 16, verse 22. Verse 22. Then the multitude rose up together against them, and magistrate tore off their clothes and commanded them to beaten them with rods. ఇది పాల్ ఎక్స్పీరియన్స్ చేశాడు తన లైఫ్ లో. అపోస్తుల కార్యంలో ఏం చేశారంటే తన బట్టలు తీసేసి he was beaten with rods. This happened in Acts, but still he could able to write in Philippians, in everything give thanks. Everything. ఇట్లాంటి సమయంలోనా dragging, stoning, almost you are about to die, and Paul saying in everything give thanks. One more verse. 2 Corinthians chapter 11, 24 and 25. ఈ వర్స్ తెలుగులో బాగుంటుంది. 2 Corinthians chapter 11, 24 and 25.
యూదుల చేత 5 మారులు ఒకటి తక్కువ 40 దెబ్బలు చింటిని, ముమ్మారు బెత్తములతో కొట్టబడితిని, ఒకసారి రాళ్లతో కొట్టబడితిని, ముమ్మారు ఓడ పగిలి శ్రమ పడితిని, ఒక రాత్రింబగళ్ళు సముద్రములో గడిపితిని.
ఒక రాత్రింబగళ్ళు ఆయన ఎక్కువ జోక్స్ చేయకూడదు కానీ ఒక రాత్రింబగళ్ళు హిల్టన్ హోటల్లో ఉండడం లేదు. ఒక రాత్రింబగళ్ళు హీ వాజ్ ఇన్ ది ఓషన్. అండ్ మనము అంటే మనలో కొంతమంది, నేను ఎవరిని పాయింట్ చేయట్లేదు కానీ మనలో కొంతమంది తలనొప్పి వేస్తేనే లార్డ్ టేక్ అవే దిస్ హెడేక్, లార్డ్ ఐఎమ్ గోయింగ్ త్రూ టఫ్ టైమ్ అని అంటాం. I'm not suppressing anything, but I'm just saying, Paul, when he wrote Philippians chapter 4, he was saying, no matter whatever the situation you are going through, that's okay, God is watching. But before you go to him, before you pray, the way you should approach God is with thanksgiving. God, you are doing everything which I cannot understand, which I cannot comprehend, but I give you thanks. And then I put my supplications, and then I put my prayers. Verse 24 and 25, 2 Corinthians, I'll read one more time. Actually, there is a big list. Paul was saying, oh, I went through tough times, but this just one verse I actually noted down. Let's read one more time, all of us. 2 Corinthians chapter 11. Yeah, 24 and 25. From the Jews, 5 times I received 40 stripes minus 1. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was stoned. 3 times I was shipwrecked. A night and day I have been in the deep ocean. This was the life of Apostle Paul. He went through all this. He went through all this from chapter 14, chapter 16, and again in 2 Corinthians chapter 11, he listed so many troubles. So when we compare our troubles with either life of Job, life of these apostles, especially life of Apostle Paul, our troubles and our pains are nothing. You're not even seeing that tough days. But still, it is not my intention that we should go low and we should humble ourselves. No, God is saying that we can still go to God. We can still go and pray about our situation. But our attitude will be, Lord, thank you, because that's what Paul is teaching to a church. And we are also church. We are also body of church. So let's read that verse one more time, and we'll see one person's life in the Old Testament, and we'll see how he reacted when he was going through tough times, how he got help from God, and that way we'll prepare our hearts before we put our petitions. Now let's read the same portion one more time. Philippians chapter 4, verses 4 to 7. Philippians chapter 4, verses 4 to 7. Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I will say rejoice. Let your gentleness be known to all men, because Lord is at hand. Be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds through Jesus Christ. Now for today's meditation, Psalms 34. Again, this is also very well-known portion. Psalms 34, verses 1 to 15. I know we don't have much time, but we'll quickly go through all of them. Verses 1 to 15. If anyone can help alternatively, we can quickly go. Psalms 34, verses 1 to 15. Verse 1. I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise shall continually be in my mouth.
My soul shall make her boast in the Lord. The humble shall hear thereof and be glad.
Oh, magnify the Lord with me, and let us exalt his name together.
I sought the Lord, and he heard me and delivered me from all my fears.
They looked to him and were radiant, and their faces were not ashamed.
This poor man cried, and the Lord heard him and saved him out of all his troubles.
The angel of the Lord encamps all around those who fear him and delivers them.
O taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the man that trusteth in him.
Verse 9. Oh, fear the Lord, O you his saints. There is no one want to those who fear him.
The young lions do lack and suffer hunger, but they that seek the Lord shall not want any good thing.
Verse 11. Come, you children, listen to me. I will teach you the fear of the Lord.
What man is he that desireth life and loveth many days, that he may see good?
Verse 13. Keep your tongue from evil and your lips from speaking deceit.
Depart from evil and do good. Seek peace and pursue it.
Verse 15. The eyes of the Lord are on the righteous, and his ears are open to their cry. So if you have state Bibles, probably this chapter heading, you can clearly get it. It says that a psalm of David when he pretended madness before Abimelech, who drove him away, and he departed. Same attitude, whatever Paul was talking in the New Testament, that when we are going through tough times, when we have needs, when we have some prayer requests, when we want something from God, Paul is saying in the New Testament, okay, you can go and ask in the presence of the Lord, but the attitude should be first give thanks, praise him, worship him, and then put your supplications, right? Same thing, same experience. One more man of God in the Old Testament is none other than King David. Psalms 34, it says, he wrote this when he was in the land of enemy, right? When he went to Philistines' place and before Abimelech, he acted very mad. And then he wrote. When he is writing, how is he starting this verse, this psalm? I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise shall continually be in my mouth. And verse 4, I sought the Lord and he heard me and delivered me from all my fears. So when we read this psalm, we should ask a question to ourselves: why, first of all, David had to go to in front of Abimelech, and why he had to act mad, and then why he wrote this psalm? Because these are all valid questions, right? We know David's life. In 1 Samuel chapter 10, Samuel anoints Saul to be the first king of Israelites. And then in 1 Samuel chapter 16, Samuel goes to Bethlehem and he finds shepherd David, very young. Many people agree that he was around teenage. And then he brings him. He anoints him as the future king of Israelites. Now see, look at him. King David, his life. From very young age, he knows the name of Lord. యెహోవా అను నామం ఎరిగినటువంటి వ్యక్తి దావీదు. అతి చిన్న వయసు నుండి. చాలా మంది ఒప్పుకునే విషయం ఏంటంటే, తను టీనేజ్ గా ఉన్నప్పుడే సమూయేలు చేత అభిషేకించబడ్డాడు. ఫ్యూచర్ రాబోచున్న రాజులాగా. And in chapter 16 verses 21 to 23, let's read 1 Samuel chapter 16. Quickly we'll look at his experience, and we'll try to follow these great men, Apostle Paul and King David. 1 Samuel chapter 16, 21 and 21 to 23. I'm reading 1 Samuel chapter 16. So David came to Saul and stood before him, and he loved him greatly, and he became his armor bearer. So Paul's armor bearer is David now. Verse 22, then Saul sent to Jesse saying, please let David stand before me, for he has found favor in my sight. Verse 23, and so it was whenever the Spirit of God was upon Saul, that David would take a harp and play it with his hand. Then Saul would become refreshed and well, and the distressing spirit would depart from him. See, because of the talents, because of the skills, David could able to live in the court of Saul himself. This is his life journey. So he's starting, he's very young. He was captured by Samuel. Samuel could able to see the future king in him. And now David is in the courts of Saul himself, in his own presence. Saul is telling David's father, you go, David will be with me. And David is ministering unto Saul. Verse 7, chapter 17, verse 50. 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 50. So David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and a stone, and struck the Philistine and killed him, but there was no sword in the hand of David. This is again well-known portion to all of us. See the graph, see the progress of David. David was a small child. Samuel could able to find him, anoint him. David now in the house of the Saul, and now David brought victory to whole Israelites. So slowly David is increasing. He's getting popularity, and he's getting blessings. He's getting everything. His life is going in a more positive way. And verse 18, chapter 18, verse 13. Let's read chapter 18, verse 13 all together, please. Therefore Saul removed him from his presence and made him his captain over 1,000, and he went out and came in before the people. In Telugu, it's even more beautiful. Can anyone please read it in Telugu? Chapter 18, verse 13.
కాబట్టి సౌలు అతని తన యొద్ద నుండనీయక సహస్రాధిపతిగా చేసెను. అతడు జనులకు ముందు వచ్చుచూ పోవుచూ ఉండెను.
See, slowly, if you see, David's position is increasing. Saul, even though now kind of jealous, he removed his position from his own place, but he gave him another position. And it says that he made him a captain over 1,000. In other words, he became a leader for his military. He's a captain now. David is captain. So see the life of David, right? So everything is going smooth. Sometimes even in our lives also, everything is going smooth. We accepted our Lord Jesus Christ. Probably we got our education, job, visa, everything I'm not mentioning, but everything in one direction going smooth well. But when it comes to chapter First Samuel chapter 21 verse 10, let's read verse 10. Chapter 21 from verse 10 to 22 verse 2. We can read it alternatively again. First Samuel chapter 21 from verse 10 to chapter 22 verse 2. Then David arose and fled that day before Saul and went into Achish, the king of Gath.
And the servants of Achish said unto him, Is not this David the king of the land? Did they not sing one to another of him in dances, saying, Saul hath slain his thousands, and David his 10,000s?
Verse 12. Now David took these words to heart and was very much afraid of Achish, the king of Gath.
And he changed his behavior before them, and feigned himself made in their hands, and scrabbled on the doors of the gate, and let his spittle fall down upon his beard.
Verse 14. Then Achish said to his servants, Look, you see the man is insane. Why have you brought him to me?
Have I need of madmen, that ye have brought this fellow to play the madman in my presence? Shall this fellow come into my house?
Chapter 22, verse 1. David therefore departed from there and escaped to the cave of Adullam. So when his brothers and all his father's house heard it, they went down to their. Let's read verse 2. And everyone who was in distress, everyone who is in debt, and everyone who was discontented gathered to him. So he became captain over them, and there were about 400 men and with him. So if you see chapter 21 verses 10, what is happening? David rose and fled away from Saul because Saul was jealous and he was ready to kill him. Saul was so jealous about David because looking at David's progress, and David was welcomed by everyone. David is being liked by all Israelites. So Saul is ready to kill David. Now David's fled from there. And in Telugu, if you read, it says, గోడల మీద ఆ దేశంలో పట్టణంలో ఉన్న గోడల మీద పిచ్చి రాతలు రాస్తూ అతని సలైవా అంత ఫేస్ మీద వస్తుంటే ఆ రకంగా ఉన్నాడంట. అంత అటువంటి పరిస్థితుల్లో ఉంటే ఆ రాజు చూసి ఈ పిచ్చివాడిని వెర్రివాడిని నా దగ్గరికి ఎందుకు తీసుకొచ్చారు అంటే మళ్ళీ చాప్టర్ 22లో అక్కడి నుంచి కూడా మళ్ళీ బయలుదేరి వేరే ప్లేస్ లో హీ ఎస్కేప్. సో డేవిడ్ కే తన యొక్క క్రైస్తవ జీవితంలో విశ్వాస జీవితంలో హెచ్చు తగ్గులు వస్తున్నప్పుడు తను చిన్ననాటి నుండి he could able to see the power of Lord. He could able to see the hand of Lord. Second Samuel మనకి టైం లేదు. This is the last verse I want to say. Second Samuel లో ఒక మాట ఉంటది. అబ్షాలోంతో ఒక వ్యక్తి he talks to Absalom. He says, Absalom, you do not know about your father. Anybody whose heart is like a lion's heart also cannot stand in front of David అంటారు. అబ్షాలోంతో సెకండ్ సామ్యుయల్లో I forgot his name. He says, నీ తండ్రి మహాబలాఢ్యుడు, సింహము వంటి గుండె వాళ్ళు కలిగినటువంటి వాళ్ళు కూడా నీ తండ్రి ఎదుట నిలువలేరు అని చెప్తాడు. సింహము లాంటి గుండె అంటే దే ఆర్ వెరీ మైటీ పీపుల్, వెరీ స్ట్రాంగ్ పీపుల్. అటువంటి వారు కూడా డేవిడ్ ముందు నిలవలేరంట. అట్లాంటి వ్యక్తి ఈరోజు చూస్తే వెర్రివాడు లాగా ఉన్నాడు ఇక్కడ. సో ఈవెన్ ఇన్ అవర్ లైఫ్స్ ఆల్సో, even though we have seen some success or some good times, there may be some tough times also, but we shouldn't be discouraged. Like he wrote Psalms 34, Lord, I will bless you at all times. And then he says, when I came to Lord, he heard me and he delivered me from all my troubles. So I do not know what each one of us are going through our tough times, because in some churches, they say there are some unspoken prayer requests. So I do not know what you are going through, and you do not know what I'm going through, but we all have our own troubles and our own requests and our own petitions. Everybody has. But the attitude what Apostle Paul and King David is teaching us, we should be thankful to God, and then we should put our petitions and requests at him. It says, Psalms 34 verse 4, I sought the Lord and he heard me and delivered me from all my fears. Verse 9, oh, fear the Lord, you his saints. There is no one to those who fear him. Verse 10, the young lions lack and suffer hunger, but those who seek the Lord shall not lack any good thing. I think this is the comfort we need. It doesn't matter whatever the tough times we are going through, whatever the need we have, with thanksgiving heart when we go to God, he will definitely hear and answer our prayers.